Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Hope you're doing really well on this Friday. We've got a different type of show today, a tactical show, a closer look at a defensive issue and concern I've had about Chelsea for some time and has been expressed by others, and just wanted to go through it and maybe some of the solutions, or just kind of highlighting why maybe Chelsea are conceding goals or conceding opportunities, given there are positives obviously at the other end from an attacking point of view. I do want to quickly say, kind of a belated now, I guess, a day later, happy Thanksgiving to my US followers, because I know I do have people from the US who do follow and support the show. So I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and do whatever you do, celebrate, get together. I do find it quite weird that Americans have kind of two Christmases, or at least two Christmas kind of feasts very close together, but it's an American thing. So I hope you had a great time with your friends and family. But let's jump into this, and it's all about the Pellegrini offside trap. Now, this was really sparked and kind of my interest in doing this show. I got to give credit to Michael Cox from The Athletic. Tactics guy has written several books about the tactical evolution of the game and tactics in European and world football. Definitely suggest go and read those books. Zonal Marking was one of them. The Mixer was more about the Premier League, which I definitely suggest go and read as well. But this was his latest piece, or more recent piece, for The Athletic. What is the Pellegrini offside trap, and why is it undermining Chelsea's season? Now, this was written just after the Arsenal game, so it looked at kind of the first period of the season. I mean, we've only had two games since the Leicester and Heidenheim game last night, but I think both also give more evidence to this theory and kind of why it isn't working out for Chelsea. And this is what he kind of described as this Pellegrini approach, and why, from a Chelsea point of view, it's kind of causing a vulnerability in our defence that is allowing quite easy goals or quite easy looks at the goal for the opposition. This is what he had to say. Tactically, one of the curious features of Pellegrini's approach in his spells at Villarreal, City and West Ham was his insistence on his back four holding an offside line on the edge of their penalty box rather than dropping off inside it. At times it catches the opponent's offside, but on other occasions it means your defensive line ends up in the wrong position, too high up and too easy to beat. This cost Chelsea and Arsenal's goal yesterday. Obviously, was written the day after the game, and has been an issue throughout Maresca's first 3 months in charge. And then we can look at some screenshots that really demonstrate this. So this is the Arsenal goal. If you're listening on the podcast, I would definitely suggest go over to the YouTube channel and watch the video as well, because we're looking at here the setup, right, just before the Arsenal opener in the second half, and you see this defensive line: Mark Cucurella, Levi Colwill, Wesley Fofana, I believe Moises Caicedo was in there as well, and then you've got Malo Gusto tucking in from that right back, going into a more conventional right back position. And the issue comes instantly where it's an all right line. It's not a great line, to be fair, to start with. They're already keeping at least maybe one or two Arsenal players on side. But the issue comes from the moment that ball is played over the top by Martin Odegaard, where it's actually Levi Colwill who drops off, and he has a tendency to do this. He drops off naturally. The rest of his defensive line hasn't gone with him, and he's keeping at least two Arsenal players on side, and Martinelli is there at the back post and is able to then score the opening goal. Another example that Michael Cox references that was very costly for Chelsea was away at Anfield shortly after equalising. Another example here of playing this line. This time it was Reece James at fault for dropping back, not being in there for his defensive line, allowing Liverpool players to be onside. It was a brilliant pass by Mohamed Salah, but Curtis Jones, who'd been making these sort of runs all game, drifts in, gets in front of Chelsea's defence, is onside, and obviously scores quite an easy goal, and that ends up being the winner in a tight game at Anfield. Another example, I believe this was only like a week later, at home to Newcastle, in a game Chelsea did win, but their equaliser coming again from this ability and kind of insistence on defending at the edge of our box. This time it wasn't really a problem of a player moving too deep. It was just the case that good teams will find a way around it if they play their passes right, and this time using the width of Lewis Hall, and the ball gets played across to Alexander Isak, who's a brilliant poacher, brilliant striker, was there again, tap in. And it was quite a passive way of Chelsea conceding an equaliser in what ended up being a tight game. And this is even after what Michael Cox referenced. If you look at the end of the Leicester game, where Chelsea defended pretty well, the Cordova-Reid is able to break Chelsea's offside line at the edge of the box, and this leads to the penalty being given away by Romeo Lavia that gives Leicester slight hope in added time. And we look at the defensive line again here, and once again it is, I believe, there Levi Colwill dropping a little bit too deep, allowing D Cordova-Reid to stay onside. He's played in by Mavadidi, and then he's taken out by Romeo Lavia. Now, even though we've looked at a lot of Premier League examples, even in the Conference League, it's quite clear this is the regular kind of defensive strategy for Enzo Maresca, because we saw it against Heidenheim. Now, to be fair to Chelsea, they did catch Heidenheim offside a number of times in that second half, which was a little bit risky, but it worked out in the end. But there was specifically one example where we see the defensive line here really good, really rigid. Eventually it's I believe it's Axel Disasi who's able to block a pass, but the problem comes when Joao Felix loses the ball in a really bad area, and then when Heidenheim are able to get back possession, Chelsea's defensive line is then all over the place naturally, hasn't got back quickly enough, and it's allowed for a one-on-one that Jorgensen really saves well. As I would say, in terms of this offside line and the extremity of it, Chelsea were able to very much expose Heidenheim, being able to catch them offside. But as you can see here, if you have a good quality of opponent, if maybe something happens, you lose possession in a really poor area, that then means your defensive line is no longer structured, it's quite easy to get in on goal, and then you're very much hoping that your goalkeeper bails you out, which luckily Philip Jorgensen did on Thursday. I feel like the wider conversation here is just about, Chelsea's defensive numbers are not tragic this season. I mean, if you compare them to Man City, who obviously are having a really rough go at the moment, to the surprise of all of us, they're not as defensively bad as them, in terms of, even before the international break, we were kind of quite close to them in terms of goals conceded. Obviously, that has now very much weighed against Man City because of the 4-0 drubbing last week against Spurs. So defensively, Chelsea aren't conceding a number of goals that are freakishly abnormal for teams at the top of the league. Like that's just the case. That's reality. However, Chelsea are still conceding goals in poor ways. We aren't keeping enough clean sheets, and I think the frustration probably for Maresca, or should be for Maresca, is that when you look at other parts of Chelsea's game, the way we're able to control parts of the game, attack-wise, we've been pretty productive so far this year. That's been a real positive, the way that attack has flowed. You're trying to eliminate the flaws within your team that are going to really undermine that, especially in tighter games. And I feel when I look at the Arsenal game, the way that goal was conceded, I know it game state and all of this, but could have, if that defensive line is better, or Chelsea have a different strategy and they're able to stop those kind of opportunities being exploited by the opponents, are Chelsea maybe adding a few more points, and that could be so crucial to us qualifying for the Champions League next season. So I feel like this is something that needs to be looked upon. Is it a case of players still adapting to this defensive line, and the more they play together in the system, the more accustomed they will become to it? But I have to say, I mean, it's easy to pinpoint one player or another, like Levi Colwill, who I think has been guilty of drifting a little bit back. But at the same time, when you look at the Newcastle goal and watching the Heidenheim game, it doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel like something that is sustainable, especially against better quality of opposition. And even earlier in the season, I think back to the Man City game at times where City were able to get pretty decent looks at our goal. Chelsea still feel quite passive in really dangerous territory, and this offside line rule, I'm not entirely sure from the Pellegrini book of coaching, is doing Chelsea much favour, because it seems to be giving away a lot of great opportunities. I want to hear your thoughts. Is it just too much of a little thing, and maybe we're focusing too much on it? I do think there is a pattern here, and the pattern is quite concerning, because teams obviously are smart and they will catch on to this issue, and Chelsea are making it very clear in a number of competitions how they want to defend and set their stall out. And it kind of feels like Chelsea aren't rigid enough with that high line, or even, it's not even a high line, it's like this 6-yard box, the offside kind of Pellegrini offside trap, as Michael Cox puts it, is not as cemented in the minds and kind of the automatisms of Chelsea players that they're able to put it into effect on a number of occasions. And I do fear that it is being exploited and something that needs to be looked upon by Enzo Maresca. Maybe he looks to adjust as the season progresses. Do you think he should? Do you think he should stick with it and it will improve over time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Follow me across the socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.